Welcome to This Week in Wrestling History.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Wrestling History. We're your hosts, Jacob.
Yo.
Ryan. And we have Wrestlemania, I'm going to call it 36 this week.
Because it's 35 plus 1.
Correct. So, yeah, we're going to do mostly a recap of WrestleMania 35, but we're going to touch on some stuff from WrestleMania 1, actually, since we're going to start our WrestleMania recaps with number 1.
A whole 35 years worth of difference. I'm sure there's something that we can talk about.
I'm sure there's a couple of things. Before we get to that, plugs?
Twitter, WrestleHistPod.
Gmail, Wrestling History Podcast at gmail.com.
YouTube, search for This Week in Wrestling History Podcast and look for the pink 80s logo.
On Facebook, it's Wrestling History Podcast.
Yep.
All right. And on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, I'm sure a million of other
bunch
things.
Of stuff. And Spotify.
All of your podcast platforms, This Week in Wrestling History.
If you Google us, something will show up.
You'll find us. Subscribe, like, all of that fun stuff. Please. Thanks.
Pretty please.
All right. Enough of begging. That's it's not below us. Certainly not below us.
Not at all.
No one wants to hear that. All right. Anyways, so yeah, sorry for missing last week. Was it technical issues or just bad scheduling for us? I think it was scheduling.
Yeah. Well, scheduling and Libsyn being dumb.
Oh, yeah. So if you ever notice we miss a week, especially at the end or the beginning of a month, it's probably because our hosting only gives us so much space. And since we tend to ramble at times, we kind of hit that limit, usually about 4 weeks. Sometimes when we have a 5-week month, we'll run out.
Us ramble? Really?
No.
And never. That's not a thing we do, ever.
Anyways, we are back.
Now?
So we were going to cover WrestleMania 1 in the lead-up of WrestleMania 35 last week. But since we weren't here, let's just cover WrestleMania 1 and WrestleMania 35.
I think it would be better if we didn't go over all of WrestleMania 1 because...
I think it'd probably be better if we didn't go all of WrestleMania 35 either. We don't have 5 hours to do a podcast.
Yeah, that's true. So why don't we talk about that first?
Yeah, let's start
Nice little
there.
segue.
Right, so that's kind of the fun fact about WrestleMania 1. If you go back and watch WrestleMania 1, its runtime was 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was shorter than every other wrestling pay-per-view that WWE put on this year.
It's shorter than Raw.
Which is absurd. Absolutely absurd.
Right, it's really mind-boggling that the event that kind of started the whole thing
is probably one of their shorter pay-per-views.
Right. It definitely speaks volumes as to how they've gone from being kind of a wrestling company to an entertainment company.
Yeah, especially because now, who has 7 hours to sit down and watch wrestling?
Right. That's definitely something we'll get to. Oh, do you want to discuss it now?
Might as well. We're already talking about it.
Right. So, WrestleMania 1, while watching that, I definitely hit a few matches where I was kind of like, whatever. But the matches were fairly short and fairly quickly paced. They got through things.
The two longest matches on WrestleMania 1 were Brutus Beefcake versus David Sammartino, which was just under 12 minutes.
Of all matches to go long, why that one?
Right. And then the main event, which was Hulk Hogan and Mr. T with Jimmy Snuka, randomly, going over Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper with Bob Orton. That one went 13 and a half minutes.
Right. So that was like a long match back then.
Right. And compared to
WrestleMania 35, hang on,
Yeah.
I've got that right here if my phone wants to cooperate
So
with
the
me.
shortest match, aside from Seth and Brock,
Well, aside from Joe and Ray.
well, yeah, those two, Corbin and Kurt was 6 minutes, Finn Balor was 4 minutes, whereas we have main event with the Becky, Ronda, and Charlotte being almost 22 minutes.
Yeah, we have the WWE Championship between Kofi and DB going almost 24.
Of all matches, Triple H and Batista going almost 25 minutes.
Yeah, so that's where we really, at least, so we watched it at separate places, but we were watching at the same time. We were talking over Facebook Messenger. The group we were in really started getting tired of this show right around, I'd say right after, honestly, the WWE Championship match. It kind of started. And definitely by the time we hit Finn Balor and Bobby, we were definitely like, okay, we're done. We're done. We don't care. We're done.
See, I started to get a little meh towards the end of Shane McMahon and Miz, just because that was a dumpster fire.
That was not amazing. I mean, like even as a hardcore match, that wasn't great. Okay, cool. Miz is doing something different, which all well and good, but
right.
meh.
But as soon as Samoa Joe and Ray happened, I was like, please let this not be a long match. Thank goodness it wasn't.
Right. You couldn't have asked for a quicker match on that one. But yeah, I found myself, especially during Triple H and Batista, being like, I don't care. Just finish. I want to go to bed. Because that was like around, 10:30, 11. The show didn't finish until midnight.
Yeah. That if they had played that match a little bit earlier in the night, it probably wouldn't have seemed so bad to us.
Right. So as we were talking online, we didn't care for the match much at all. We kind of popped for a few of the spots here and there, like, oh, that was cool. Ooh, look at that. But largely we were just like, we don't care. Stop with this stupid long introduction for Triple H. First off, that thing was cringy in and of itself. I'm done with Triple H entrances. They're awful. They're always awful. You will never convince me otherwise that those are not the worst things in wrestling. Anyways, I didn't care about the match at all. Like, I just wanted it over.
Yeah, I mean, the height of that match peaked when Triple H ripped out Batista's nose ring.
Which, I don't know why, but I felt like that was coming the minute I saw Batista back with the nose ring, because he's never had that before. I've never seen that in many of the movies Dave ever does.
He doesn't wear it through the movies, but if you see him like doing interviews and stuff, he usually has it on.
Yeah, I don't know why. For some reason, it felt like they put a target on that since he was back.
You know what started it was Randy Orton doing the thing with Jeff Hardy's ear,
yep.
And Triple H was like, "Oh, well, we could use that."
Yeah, it's like that always feels like what Triple H is doing right now in his matches is, what has everyone else done that the internet liked? Okay, I can do that.
Right.
Nothing he does feels original, and I think that's why I really hate his entrances, is because they're just trying too hard.
They're trying too hard to be movies.
It's, hey, look at me. I'm your grandpa, and I'm still cool, right, kids? And even kind of like going back a bit, the Hall of Fame felt like that with Triple H.
I mean, it was still the same old DX shtick, which, if you're going to put DX in the Hall of Fame, you kind of had to have guessed that would happen.
But the DX shtick doesn't... We know that's not Triple H now, so it felt like a lot of try-hard.
On his part, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, on his part at least.
But again, Shawn Michaels doing the old man run.
Yeah, we've discussed this off the air. Is one of my favorite things now is the Shawn Michaels old man jog trot around the ring. It's just, I don't know why I love that. It's hilarious.
And all of the little pot shots at AEW at the Hall of Fame was kind of funny, but I should say the funniest one was with Billy Gunn.
Right, what's he going to do? Fire me?
Right.
So, yeah, I really didn't find it that... I didn't find it funny. I didn't find it intelligent. I didn't find it to be a wise move at all on the part of DX to try to play down the chants the crowd was making. Because why would you try to fight the fans cheering you? Literally, okay, they're not cheering you in exactly the way you want them to cheer you.
But they're still cheering you.
Right, and it's not like they're doing the thing where it's a female wrestler and they're chanting for her boyfriend or husband, which is pretty disrespectful because it's we only like you because of this other guy.
Yeah.
That's a shitty way of doing things.
Kind of shitty.
We're just cheering for you in the way that this segment of fans currently cheers for things. Why would you try to turn your back and distance yourself from that? I don't get that. That's just trying to be too cool for the room, and seems like a really douchey way to do things.
Oh, yeah, obviously. But kind of getting back to Mania, as soon as the Triple H and Batista match hit, it got to the point where you were like, oh, I've been sitting here for 5 hours. Great, we have another 3 left.
Right. So I don't think... I started watching... I skipped kind of the pre-show, which turns out I exactly skipped the pre-show. I started watching. I literally turned on the network and saw Seth Rollins getting F5'd on the outside by Brock Lesnar before the match.
Yeah, I came in just a little bit before that. I heard the Seth Rollins pop as soon as his Burn It Down hit.
Okay, so literally within minutes. So
yeah,
so we both essentially sat through the same amount of Mania, which it was so long. We didn't even watch the full thing, and we were exhausted by it.
Yeah, it was a little ridiculous that it went from 7 until quarter after midnight without the pre-show.
Right. So that's ridiculous amounts of time. I guess the rumor going around, I don't know if it's a rumor or confirmed, so apparently someone got a hold of WWE's like financial breakdown for their executives, and part of the executives' bonus is dependent upon how much content is developed for the network. So that's why they're pushing for longer things, because it's more content.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense if you're trying to make money.
Right, it makes sense for the executives, but now you're doing what's best for you, not what's best for business.
Well, they are doing what's best for business, just not what's best for fans.
So I guess, as I just said, WWE now being an entertainment company and not a wrestling company, they're not doing what's best for wrestling business. They're doing what's best for entertainment business.
Yep. I mean, hence why do you think they have all these random stupid shows on the network?
I like some of the random stupid shows, but
some of them are good. But why do I need a collection of AJ Styles matches where it's one match per episode? Why don't you put them all into one long thing? Why don't you split them in half, make it a two-parter?
Right, that would make a lot more sense. And I would be much happier with them making content in that fashion than trying to artificially extend what the current product. Take the old product, repackage it, and ship it off to us in a different way. Like the photos thing they're doing now is pretty entertaining. They're just showing old photos and having wrestlers talk about them.
Yeah, I mean, that was always... I've seen a couple of them, and it's pretty solid. Or the one that Corey Graves used to have where he would talk about tattoos.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can make content pretty easily with the amount of performers that company has. You shouldn't have to artificially make WrestleMania 7 hours long.
Yeah, it just... I mean, I fell asleep at one point in the middle of the women's match.
Oh, that's right.
And ended up waking up to Becky holding up both belts, and I was like, well, shit.
Yeah, you didn't see the finish. You wanted to see that, yet you fell asleep because of how damn long the show is.
Yep. If that had been on, like, I don't know, an hour sooner, I probably would have made it.
Yeah, so that's our biggest takeaway, is the difference between the shows is just how, and it not like it's an original take, just how damn long it's become.
Yeah.
It's not what's in the best interest of anyone except the executives at this point, if that is in fact a legitimate thing about why they're artificially inflating the times on things.
I mean, it would make sense, but...
And I mean, they've always said that they're trying to get people the WrestleMania payday, and just something's got to give. They can't keep increasing the length of the show.
Right, which, I mean, I guess I would get if they're trying to increase or to get people the paydays and stuff like that. But think about it. You didn't have Kevin Owens on the show.
Right.
Where could he have fit in throughout this entire 7.5 hour long pay-per-view before the pre-show?
Right. Definitely feels like you would have been able to tuck him in somewhere if you really were caring about getting people on the show.
Exactly.
And I don't know if it was you who I'm pretty sure it was you I was talking with, because I don't really talk wrestling with many other people. I think if they were better about pacing their stories, they could have figured something out where they don't even have the WWE title main eventing shows. They don't even necessarily have like the women's SmackDown title on pay-per-views half the time. Couldn't they figure out a way to maybe make the women's SmackDown title headline Fastlane, and then have it doing something important at Money in the Bank, and not necessarily have to have that title at Mania, and
stagger across all of the pay-per-views.
You have so many titles, so much talent. Yeah, you can stagger and let these programs breathe a bit. Like on NXT, you don't see the NXT champion on every single episode of NXT.
No, you're right. I mean, especially if they were to, again, break it up where you had each other title at each one of the big four.
Right.
Like you have Raw title at Mania and
like definitely have both your world titles at Mania, but you don't need to necessarily have the main belt at Money in the Bank. Why not have the IC belt be the main thing at Money in the Bank?
right.
Like you could build these other titles up to mean a lot more. And hey, I bet you might actually make some of your talent be able to rest up a little bit more if their story isn't being featured every week, if they don't need to go out in the ring every week.
True. Very true.
Wow. Talking about rambling, we definitely got away from where we were starting there. So, do we want to go over Mania 1 or 35 real quick?
I think we should hit 35 because that's kind of what the brunt of the show is going to be.
That sounds like a plan. All right, let me go back and pull it up here real quick. All right, so do you want to cover... Let's start with the pre-show. Well, let's not start with the pre-show. I never watched it. We can talk about a couple things real quick.
We can say what happened at the pre-show.
Sure. So the very first match of the night was Tony Nese defeating Buddy Murphy for the Cruiserweight Championship.
Which I heard was actually really good.
That I would totally believe.
Kind of on par with the Cruiserweight division at this point.
And it's really sad that this, of everything, was the first match. This is supposed to be one of your big belts. This is the 205 Live main singles belt. Why not make this the main event of the pre-show?
Right. Well, you couldn't do that because you had Colin Jost and Michael Che from Saturday Night Live in the main event of the pre-show.
Which is another tangent. I watch Saturday Night Live every week. Their whole run on Raw was never once mentioned on SNL.
No, why would it? Why would it be?
Because it would have brought more attention to WrestleMania.
There was more wrestlers on Jimmy Fallon than there were on SNL leading up to this.
There were more wrestlers on Rhett and Link than there were on SNL leading up to this. So yeah, it was just really. It felt like a wasted opportunity. Like, why are these guys here? Which it was funny, and if you actually go on WWE on their website, they have a clip during the match of Colin and Michael underneath the ring. It was actually really funny.
That sounds like it would be good.
So as far as like comedy spots at Mania go, theirs was actually pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, I don't really know of any other comedy spots that popped up.
Yeah, but I'm in the grand scheme, like it's better than Pete Rose's stuff, I always thought. But.
True. I mean, aside from the dance break too. But.
Sure.
So after Tony Nese and Buddy Murphy, we had Carmella winning the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royale.
So this was literally a payday for the women, which all fine and well, but there was no point to this.
Right.
Moving on.
Then we had Hawkins and Ryder winning the Raw tag belts from the Revival.
So this was, if you go online, you'll hear talk of Vince's Golden Bullet. That was kind of what Kurt Hawkins got nicknamed because this guy was on a 3-year losing streak. You know, whoever took the loss to Hawkins on his very first win after 3 years of losing, boy, did you piss off Vince.
Yep. And guess who done it?
Everyone was so weirded out when the Revival won the tag titles after asking for their release. That seems so weird. Why would they do such a thing? These guys wanted to, it's so we could really punish them.
Yep.
Got it.
So now I can only assume that they really, if they didn't before, they now really are going to ask for their release and probably go to AEW.
Honestly, I don't even know if they would go to AEW at this point. I feel like AEW is getting pretty full. Then again, there's the whole FTR thing, so maybe, who knows?
They don't have a lot of tag teams though.
Yeah, true. Well, they have the Lucha Brothers
and the Bucks
and the Best Friends.
3 teams.
All right,
do better.
Fair enough. Anywho, so after that tag match, we had Braun winning the armbar.
The armbar?
Andre Rusimov Memorial Battle BA Royal. Armbar.
That's dumb.
It's awesome. It's the arm bar.
That's dumb.
You've never heard the Andre Memorial Battle Royal called the arm bar?
Nope.
All right, apparently I'm lying way too much.
Yes, you are.
Fair enough.
So then we go to the first match of the main show, I guess, which was Seth versus Brock.
Right, so...
Can we talk about Paul Heyman's promo at the beginning?
So I missed it, so go for it.
I want to say Vince grabbed Heyman before he went out and goes, I want you to get some heat. I want people to hate you and Brock. So Heyman comes out and marches his way to the ring without saying a word, gets in the ring and goes, we're here to do this now because if my client can't be in the main event and the women are taking over the main event, Brock's going to show up, he's going to destroy Seth, and we're going to go to Vegas.
Ooh, that's definitely getting some heat calling out the main event.
And it was like, okay, well, I guess that's a thing. Seth comes out and proceeds to get F5'd through everything.
Yeah, was it 1 or 2 F5s he took on the outside?
It was just one.
Yeah, just the F5 to the floor.
And then he got thrown onto the announce table. Then he got thrown through the little plastic thing that sits on the announce table.
Oh, yes.
And then he
definitely got bounced off a few things.
Yep. And then he proceeds to punch Brock in the penis and curb stomps him.
Well, everyone knows that is Brock's weakness. You hit Brock in the junk.
In the ring posts.
Well, and like the corners of tables.
Any immovable object that's at ringside.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Seth hits 3 curb stomps, new Universal Champion.
Sorry. Seth hits 3 stomps.
Fair play. I'm totally fine with them renaming that away from curb stomp. That's totally fine.
It's probably a good idea.
Yeah. So overall, definitely happy with the result.
Yeah.
Was kind of afraid they weren't going to do it.
Start the show off pretty good.
Yeah. So,
and then
we've talked that they definitely need the title back on TV. It's the right call. It's just Brock taking that belt off TV killed that belt.
They need to redesign the belt first off, and not redesign it as I mean put Velcro on it instead of the buttons.
But Velcro, it's the future.
If you guys haven't seen it, go and look at that. Pictures of Seth on Monday Night Raw. He's holding up the Universal title. There's no buttons on it. It's just a giant slap of Velcro on.
Yeah, it doesn't have snaps anymore. It has Velcro. Apparently, Seth never learned how to. I was going to say tie his shoes because that's normally what Velcro is used for kids that don't know how to tie their shoes.
Well, look at Seth's ring gear. There's no buttons on it. There's no zippers or anything. He probably doesn't know how to use any of that.
The man that cannot be contained. That's his new gimmick.
Ugh.
All right. After Seth and Brock, we had AJ versus Randy.
Blech.
It's kind of your standard Randy that didn't fully show up but cared somewhat match.
Randy showed up because Vince told him, show up or you're not getting paid.
Probably.
And AJ, of course, I don't know if he's on cruise control just yet.
It's not exactly cruise control. It's kind of cruise control for AJ almost.
Which, like we had talked about, cruise control for AJ is 20 times better than cruise control for or anybody showing up to their 100%.
Right. Cruise control for AJ is still like a solid A- typically.
Yeah.
So it was fine, but there was no real consequence to this match. It didn't really mean anything. It was just kind of something that was like, this will be a good Mania match. Sure, why not?
It was your standard, hey, 2 guys that do things. I don't like you. Let's fight.
Yeah, I don't recall the build-up for this being anything special other than, all right, sure, why not?
Other than AJ telling Randy, you failed drug tests.
That was pretty great. But, yeah, other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of substance to the build-up, so therefore the match didn't have a whole lot of substance. So
It didn't need to go 16 minutes either.
No, it didn't. Moving on.
Next we had the Usos retaining their belts against Aleister Black, Rusev, and Nakamura. Oops, sorry, hang on.
Aleister Black and Ricochet.
Yep, Aleister Black wasn't in there by himself. Rusev and Nakamura and The Bar.
Yeah, so definitely a busy match, but a good kind of busy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
these 4 guys, everyone in this match is super talented. So, shockingly, it was a pretty decent. It was a good cluster F.
Yeah, but it's like you said though. I don't understand why Aleister Black and Ricochet are a team.
Right, Aleister Black and Ricochet, they're both individually very cool, but there's nothing on the main roster for them, so F it, let's slap them in a tag team and go, guys, go. It feels like they're being wasted and just kind of like stuck in cool places to try to make them look cool without having them lose, really, just so that we can kind of move on and, hey, everyone, remember they're still here.
Yeah.
Meh.
I mean, overall, it was pretty solid.
Yeah, it was a really cool match, especially I liked it like they had the quadruple team move in the corner at that one point where it was like
and
a
then,
superplex into power bombs into something else.
And Rick lands on his feet.
Yeah, and Rick just
figure.
flipped through it. Yeah, that was great. So, I mean, Ricochet is the one and only. Like,
literally.
Yeah, literally, that's the best title for him because the stuff he does, you don't see anyone else doing, and it's cool. So.
He's like a cat.
Right.
He'll always land on his feet.
I
until he
almost
doesn't.
hope they don't overdo him and make all of that feel commonplace because I feel like his act could accidentally get kind of routine.
Yeah, I could see that happening. I mean, at least until they bring Will Ospreay in and the two of them are doing flip-doos everywhere.
That would be pretty cool, but yeah, I hope they don't overdo it with him. I hope he learns to kind of ration out his uniqueness.
Yeah.
So, all right, next up, match we talked about a little bit. Hold on.
Before you do that, though, did you see SmackDown at all?
No, but I know the results.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, even though the Usos retained their belts at Mania, they lost them on Tuesday
SmackDown
night.
to the Hardys.
So Hardys are now 8-time champs?
Pretty high up there.
Something like that.
The thinking being that maybe the Usos are going to get sent over to Raw to try to hopefully spruce up that place a bit.
Which would make sense because the Raw tag team division is a steaming pile of poop right now.
Yeah, it's been bad for a while.
I mean, hence your tag champs.
I'm about to say, of all things, though, taking the belts off the Revival isn't going to help you.
No.
But
no, not at all.
anywho. So up next, match we talked about a bit. Shane McMahon defeating The Miz in a Falls Count Anywhere match when Miz superplexed Shane off of a tower through a breakaway landing pad for lack of a better term, and Shane happened to be on top of Miz and ended up with the pin.
There was 2 spots that I enjoyed in this entire match. Otherwise, it was dumb. The finish was dumb. I hated the finish. It was awful.
It's so I dislike Shane matches in general because Shane matches are always watch Shane throw a bunch of really terrible punches.
Punch.
You mean whiff, 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 and someone has to sell it like they're in there with Tyson.
Yep.
Which, watch Shane in slow-mo. Nothing ever connects. Nothing looks good. He tries to make up for technique with speed.
Literally all he does is punches coast to coast through a table and then big spot.
Right. I hated the coast to coast because he stole the Van Terminator from RVD. Yep, he'll do the elbow from the top rope to the announce table.
Yep.
And then he'll fall off something really high.
Yep. Every single Shane McMahon match.
Sans one where he got thrown through plexiglass brutally.
Yeah. Well,
that's the only match of his I actually like was the Kurt Angle King of the Ring match.
But that's the big spot.
Yeah, there's always the big spot with Shane.
The finish was awful. I hated that finish. It was the dumbest thing ever.
It's so contrived. Like, Shane's climbing up something tall. Shane's going to get like, just stop.
Well, not even that. Just Shane happened to be on top of Miz because of the way that suplexes work.
Yeah.
No. Make the guy get up and freaking pin him.
Right. Like, also, not to mention, why would Miz, the guy that, like, the biggest thing is he doesn't take risks like that. Like,
why would he? Well, I mean, the storyline makes sense.
The storyline...
You beat up my dad, I'm going to do whatever I can kind of thing.
Just have him throw Shane off of it.
True.
Have him throw Shane off and then have him do an elbow off of the top. Like, that would have made sense as well, but obviously it's not as... You can't do that quite as safely because when someone goes through the crash pad, you can't really have someone else go through the crash. I get why logistically it doesn't work, but I'm with you. It wasn't great. On
top of that, it would have been a little bit better even if they landed next to each other and Shane rolled over and draped his arm over.
Right. Shane happened to roll over you're right. It was contrived and not great.
Just give me something other than that. So after that, which that match went far too long.
Yeah, that was 15 and a half minutes.
We got the Fatal 4-Way for the women's tag belts, which was the Iconics getting the belts off of Boss and Hug, Nia and Tamina, and the Divas of Doom.
So this I really liked.
The Iconics,
Kind of.
The Iconics should have had the belt from the beginning. Prove me wrong.
I love that the Iconics got it. I love that Beth was probably the best worker out there the entire time.
But then again, if Beth is your best worker,
that's a bit of a... So, out of these 8 women, I don't think Beth is the best worker. I think the Iconics are the best tag team there. I think Beth and Natty are a very close second, which is very sad. Obviously, I don't care for Nia Jax or Tamina whatsoever.
yeah, no.
I don't think Bayley and Sasha are good at all as a tag team. As opponents, they're amazing. As a tag team, they somehow have negative ring awareness between, like, they both actively get worse when they're doing things together.
They have negative chemistry whenever they're in the ring together, when they're on the same side.
They have negative chemistry as a tag team. I don't know how that happens, because as opponents, they're great.
But if you notice, when they're wrestling as a tag team, they hardly ever do things that tag teams do. Like, they don't have combo moves with each other.
No, sadly they do. When Bayley tries to pick up Sasha for, like, that kick, and Bayley can never pick Sasha up properly.
Yeah, it just doesn't work.
No.
Now, granted, Beth Phoenix, she's a Hall of Famer, as she should be. She was never a... Who do I want to compare her to? A Ember Moon. She was never a... There's not really many bigger, decent wrestling women right now.
Right. NXT women's champ, former champ, maybe. Rhea Ripley? Isn't she?
Yeah, the UK.
UK, that's what I meant. That's
yes.
NXT, sorry.
Yeah, I could see that. But, like, she's been out of it for too long. Taking nothing away from her.
Right. So, like we said, she's been away for 7 years. She came back and she did the best job you could ask for someone returning after that long to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to see her wrestle more.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun to have her back.
The finish was really cool. So, Beth hits an avalanche glam slam on Bayley, and then the Iconics come in, kick Beth in the back of the head, and steal the pin.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, overall, really good match, especially the Iconics are not the best workers. I'll totally admit that, but
I'll argue with you that they might be the second best talkers in the women's division behind Becky.
Oh, easily. So they get the Iconics get the comparison to ENC as a tag team. Fully agree. ENC were better workers, but their chemistry and their entertainment value is second to none.
That damn pose gets me every time. I die laughing every time they do it.
It's so good. And it's also cool on a level where you know that they've been friends for so long, and you can tell that the way they're just there for each other. And it was a really cool moment that they got this win at Mania. And so there's lots of layers to them, and that's really cool, I think.
I'll say it again. Iconics should have had the belts from the beginning. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. All right. Up next, WWE Championship match, Kofi versus DB.
We've waited 11 years.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to start this off on my criticism of the match is these two guys did not seem to be on the same page at the start of the match.
So you remember that dumb wrestler that we know at work?
Yes.
So he brought up a very valid point this time. So him and I were talking about it earlier, and it made sense what he was saying. I think Kofi may have gotten the jitters.
You think?
And I think what happened was DB worked him long enough so that those jitters passed.
Right. He kind of And I definitely think that's correct, especially DB went to some more kind of grappling style, like, okay, we're going to slow down here a little bit.
Right.
You got to breathe here, buddy.
Calm it down. Take a breath. Okay, once you're good, we'll get up and we'll start going.
Oh, yeah. I fully believe that's exactly what happened. Doesn't mean it didn't happen and wasn't a little distracting and a little to start.
It was goofy at first.
Yeah.
But the point where they started trading kicks.
Yeah. Once
Kofi hulked up.
Yeah. Once they started meshing, it was great. Like I said, I'm not trying to say this match was garbage by any means. It was just, it had a rough start.
Oh, which, to be fair, on Kofi's behalf, yeah.
Yeah. Again, a totally understandable rough start, but that start was a little rough.
I'm very glad, though, that they put the belt on Kofi.
Right. I don't need to see Kofi have a record-breaking run by any means, and honestly, I'm not sure he should, but it was definitely the right call. The crowd wanted it. It was deserved. The promos leading up to it, the work leading up to it, all fully deserved.
I mean, the work leading up to it for the past 11 years has kind of deserved it on its own.
I'm not quite sure I'm on the same boat as everyone else on that. Kofi, when DB says he's a B-plus player, I don't necessarily think he's wrong.
But here's the thing. When did you start picking up wrestling again?
Oh, probably 2013, 14.
You missed a lot of Kofi's very good career building stuff.
So I was around for his initial showing up and definitely thought he was pretty great there. I saw him tagging with CM Punk and getting the titles there,
which was fantastic.
Right. So it's not that I don't think he's a good worker. I'm not sure he's a great worker. You don't need to be a great worker to be a good champion, though. That's for damn sure. I just don't know if this story has a lot more to it. I don't know where else you go with Kofi now that you've told this story. I don't know how much story he has there.
So I think the next best thing that they would have to do would be to get Kofi into a match against somebody else who has a stable with them. Drew McIntyre in the bar.
Yeah, that could be good.
And you play out the story of, does Kofi need the New Day to be there?
That's all right. Good point. That's a good one.
Because you could draw that out for. I mean, you could bring that out to SummerSlam at the very earliest.
Oh, I definitely think he holds the belt until SummerSlam. It's just I don't know if he needs to go much past that.
I wouldn't say so. Maybe have him win it at SummerSlam and then somebody at Money in the Bank takes it.
What would you think if they turned Kofi heel now, saying having him come out all happy, being like, I did it, I finally did it, I did it on my own, I didn't need anyone else.
And he just turns on the New Day?
He just basically turns the New Day into the Genettis.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be something.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's good, but it's something you
can
do.
That would work,
right?
It's another angle for the story, I guess.
It's something you can do with that, but I don't know. It just popped in my head. I thought it might be funny. All right, what was up next? All right, we had our minute match. Samoa Joe defeating Rey Mysterio for the United States Heavyweight Championship.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that match has pretty much almost lasted longer now than our analysis of it, or lasted just as long. It was 1 minute long. Rey came in, did his Rey stuff, and then got Samoa Joe'd.
The only thing I think that this kind of set up was having Braun show up on SmackDown, because Samoa Joe comes out and goes, I'll fight anybody in the locker room. They need to step up. And then Braun comes out. Like, oh, shit.
It's cool that they used it to build up Joe. I think Rey was probably still hurt because there had been rumors last week of him being hurt going into Mania.
Well, there wasn't even rumors.
Right.
He legit got hurt, and they cleared him to have a short match.
They quote-unquote cleared him. Right. So clearly it was, can I go out, do my moves, and then have a very safe choke put on me?
Right.
So it made Joe look great. That's totally fine. Rey's not going to get hurt by a really quick loss to Joe, of all people, looking like a monster like that. So I think that's totally fine.
After that, we had Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre.
I will be completely honest. I do not remember this match.
I did not watch it.
Oh, I'm totally fine with Roman winning. I kind of prefer he didn't. So the one thing I heard about this match is people were saying there was a lot of boos for Roman and stuff. Apparently, there was actually just the New York crowd trying to start the wave, and when it wasn't working, they were booing themselves. They were booing the rest of the crowd.
Yeah, because as soon as he came out, there was a little bit of the boos, and I was like, oh, shit, we're back to that already?
Yeah, I don't think we're quite back there. I think we could slip back there if they're not careful with things.
We'll slip back there if Seth's first contender is Roman.
Yeah, we don't need that. They don't need to do that. I mean, if they make Roman the heel, people would probably be fine with it, honestly.
Yeah, but let Seth have somebody else for a little bit.
Let him have someone else. There's plenty of people on the roster. There's just no need for that. Next, next was the Triple H Batista match, which we talked about that. We're probably going to be harsher on it than we should because we were beat.
It was 4 hours in.
Yeah, it was 4 hours into not even us watching the entire thing. So it was, in retrospect, I guess I'll call it fine. The coolest thing about this evening was the next matchup was the Baron Corbin versus Kurt Angle and Kurt's farewell match. This was Batista's retirement match. He had said around this time last year, this is actually how he wanted to retire. He wanted to face Triple H in a career match and lose at Mania. Which is kind of funny for the people that actually remembered that. Dave saying, "Give me what I want." That was exactly what he wanted. He wanted to go out and lose at Mania. Dave would go on Twitter or Instagram a couple hours after the show ended and say, "Hey, by the way, thanks everyone. That was my retirement match. Thank you all so much for the career." And it was like the cool thing. The cool thing there was Batista didn't try to take that moment away from Kurt.
No, he made sure that it was, quote, behind closed doors.
Right. He just kind of slinked away, and he didn't ride off into the sunset like Kurt did. He just kind of walked off into the sunset.
Yeah.
And he let the kind of elder statesman, I guess, have his moment because Kurt preceded Dave in the business, and that was the quote unquote right thing to do.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool to me. I think Dave as a human being is a pretty good guy. So.
Well, I mean, if he supports James Gunn as much as he does, he can't be all bad.
I mean, that's kind of where I was going. Yes. It really would have been funny if they had decided to do a spot where, somehow Triple H gets hit and is, disoriented for a minute, and then Batista just stood still in the ring, and Triple H was like, "Where'd he go? I can't see him. He's invisible."
Did you notice Camille, I can never pronounce his last name.
Camille. Nanjiani.
At ringside.
Yeah, with the two giant Dave hands and a shirt.
And the shirt with Batista's face on it.
And his buddy that said, "Batista's my emergency contact."
That made me chuckle.
Yeah, that was really good. I like that the comedian is able to just jump into this and go, "This is absurd, but this is funny and awesome." So let's go to something that we didn't talk about real quick. John Oliver's thing about the WWE. Even John Oliver, the comedian, having the pseudo-serious news show, pretty much tearing WWE apart on a lot of places, still kept saying during that piece, WWE is better than the things you like.
Yeah. And the best part was he goes, "Oh, you don't think I'm right? Here's a video of Vince McMahon getting beat up in a
getting hit with a bedpan."
Yes. And the fact that he used the bedpan one was my favorite.
Oh, that was great. But it's nice when people accept wrestling for what it is, and you can also get angry at wrestling for what it does wrong and still like it for the things it does right and for the entertainment that it does bring.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see anything wrong with thinking it's super outlandish, but being entertained by it.
Yeah. I mean, my wife and I did have a discussion after the John Oliver thing. She's like, "How can you support this when look what they're doing to their employees?" And to her credit, that definitely is something I struggle with at times because Vince is a good guy at times and Vince is a piece of shit at times, and
yeah,
there is some conflict there at times.
Yeah, I would argue though that they've gotten significantly better, and a lot of the stuff that I feel like John Oliver had discussed was probably 2010-ish.
I'm not sure.
They haven't fixed everything.
Right.
But they've gotten better than they used to be.
Right. If you look at where we were in the 80s to where we are now, clear improvement. There's still a lot of work to do, though.
Yeah, which you take the wins where you can until it's 100%.
Yeah, it's like I'm never going to probably not be conflicted on certain things, but I think as far as some companies go, there's signs that they're trying. Those might also be some kind of paying lip service to certain things, but I think people are trying where they can. I think it's unfortunate that people can't try harder at certain times because of the risk it does pose to them. But
right.
Anyways, that's definitely another show. So let's move on to match 15. The Demon Finn Balor defeating Bobby Lashley for the IC belt.
In 4 minutes.
In 4 minutes, this was fantastic.
Yeah, I miss seeing the Demon. I used to love whenever they had that at
on takeovers. Yeah.
It was always fantastic. And you said probably not his best artwork for the paint.
Yeah, I didn't. So here's my issue. My issue with this paint was that there was a demon on his back. Finn is supposed to be the demon. The makeup is supposed to make him look like a demon.
He did still have the mouth part in the front.
A little bit. Not nearly as much as he normally does.
Yeah.
It was not his... I didn't like it, but...
I thought it was entertaining, at least because they used the logo.
Yeah, it was cool using... I just feel like they could have done it. I just didn't like the demon on the back.
I liked the fact that they took the logo and flipped it upside down, too.
Yeah.
Symbolism.
Haha. All right, anyways. I really like the fact that the demon had a different moveset than Finn Balor.
The fact that he powerbombed Bobby Lashley.
Such a great spot.
And it's funny because you hear Finn Balor on podcasts, specifically E&C, where he's talking about the demon, and he says, sometimes I wonder if I've forgotten how to do it because I haven't done it in so long. I don't think you did, buddy.
Well, remember, last time we saw the demon was against Baron Corbin, and that was kind of a lackluster showing for the demon. Like, he came out and steamrolled right over Corbin, but that was more Finn Balor in paint rather than quote unquote the demon. This felt like a different character, which is what the demon is supposed to be.
Yeah, and they did that a lot better in NXT when he was facing guys bigger than him, like Joe, like KO, or there was somebody else bigger that he faced. But either way, where Balor as the demon would be able to pull off the power moves on bigger people was always a little bit, oh, okay. But then when he was just Finn Balor, he never pulled those. Yeah,
he never went for stuff like that. And it was just really cool, and it didn't even make Lashley look bad because when he was going for the powerbomb, okay, can't get it, and just kept fighting for it, and then
all of a sudden it's like, whoop, there it is.
And it made the move just look, it made Balor look better, and it didn't make Bobby look bad at all for having taken it. It was a holy shit moment.
I appreciated the fact that he had a little bit of a toss with it too, that it wasn't just a straight down thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall it was a pretty solid match.
Yeah, and
for being 4 minutes.
Right, it was a quick match. I also like that they kind of played up that the demon scared the ever-loving crap out of Lio Rush, so Rush wasn't willing to jump in there and break up the pin or cause the DQ. He was like, I'm not touching this guy. I don't know. I'm not touching this. Nope. Just noped out of there.
Especially because every time Lio Rush would try to come anywhere, Finn would just turn around and at him.
Yeah. That was about the most perfect match you could have had in 4 minutes and still make both guys look really good because Lashley had his offense too.
Yeah.
Lashley did not come out of that looking any worse for wear, and Finn looked like how all of our Finn fanboys wanted him to look.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's how you do a 4 minute match right there.
Okay, now we're on to the main event.
Yes.
So I'll do my take on the main event because mine's probably going to be a little bit shorter.
Okay.
Obviously, Becky Lynch gets both belts over Ronda and Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of controversy with the finish.
Yeah, and I think they've almost kind of tried to gloss over that now, which I'm fine with them glossing over. It was an oops. The finish was an oops.
It was an oops on the ref's behalf, and
it was an oops on everyone's behalf.
So here's my thing that, again, that dumb wrestler and I were talking about. It's hard to distinguish when there's so many botches in the match.
Yeah.
When is it Becky's positioning, or is it the other two not being that good? And my argument to it was, it happened more often than not, and it doesn't happen with everybody Becky wrestles. So
it happens kind of often with Charlotte. It's no secret you and I are not Charlotte fans.
Right.
I'm not a big Ronda fan whatsoever.
I'm not either. I mean, she's come a long way from where she was.
If you say so.
I mean, the fact that when she does a Samoan drop now, she doesn't hook the head and dislocate her shoulder every freaking time.
There is that. Yeah, I mean, and again, Ronda's been in the business a year. Sure, she's come a long way for someone being in the business a year. The problem is she shouldn't be under the magnifying glass or on the stage she's under in a year.
No.
Being said,
granted, no, don't send her to NXT.
Right.
But probably not put the title on her. She could be one of those personalities that we had talked about in a couple prior episodes where she doesn't need the belt to make her matches feel big.
Right. Her being her makes the matches feel big.
Her title as the baddest woman on the planet, but I mean, it's probably true.
Right.
They could make her matches feel bigger, like when Brock didn't have the belt, when he was facing Cena and Triple H.
Taker.
Right. Brock's matches felt big when he was around without the belt. They could have done the same thing with Ronda.
Exactly. Yep. No argument there.
I appreciate that they put both belts on Becky. It shows that they're going, quote, all in with her. My only thing is that this match was sloppy.
Yeah. So that's pretty much my takeaway is it was a sloppy match because I think Ronda and Charlotte are both kind of sloppy.
Yeah.
I mean, Ronda is getting better, but I do not put her on the same level that a lot of people put her on. For better or for worse, I don't see her there. Anyways, I hated the fact that she had like a 50-minute introduction. That again, this could be from where it was on the card and how tired I was at the time. Don't waste my time with this stupid helicopter intro. Especially, it makes no damn sense that Charlotte steps off a helicopter, takes her jacket off, and puts on her robe. It's just dumb. I'm like, no, that's dumb. It just seemed cheesy and dumb.
The only thing I thought of was that they were going for like a pseudo, like Ric Flair feeling of Ronda showing up in the helicopter. But if you're gonna do that, have her show up in the Cadillac.
Have her show up in a limo.
Right.
That's the thing. It's a limo. That's Ric Flair's limo. It's not helicopter riding. It's jets and limos. Stop it.
Or hell, have her fly in on a jet, get into a limo, and then have the limo pull out onto the ramp because they had cars on the ramp before.
Yup.
Have her pull out onto the ramp and get out of the limo.
Am I also supposed to believe that Charlotte just arrived at the arena? Like, what competitor shows up to a serious competition literally 3 minutes before they're supposed to perform? That's not what an athlete does.
What competitor shows up in a helicopter dressed like she's about to walk to the match when the parking lot was empty the entire time the helicopter was landing behind her?
So, I think I mentioned this before. The other thing about this whole thing was, I don't know, it gave me a really weird Mr. Rogers vibe where Mr. Rogers would walk into the house and take off his coat and put on his sweater.
Yep.
And I don't know, it was just
Madam Rogers.
Yeah, I'm like, why is Charlotte Rogers doing this?
I think the best parts of that match were the ones with Becky involved.
Easily.
Any time where it was Ronda and Charlotte, it felt poop.
Yeah, The one thing I will say for Ronda is she took a nasty spill when she was like being held over the top rope and
shoulder first onto the apron and then neck first onto the floor.
Yeah, it took like a double bump and like thud.
Yeah.
She like slinkied out of the ring.
Was not great.
No, that definitely looked bad. Apparently she actually went into the match with a severely broken hand. So
yeah, and they tried to play it off like she broke her hand punching Becky in the face.
Sure.
And Becky was like, yeah, look at my stone face.
Yeah. There were some definitely cool moments in the match. The ending felt really bad, and I think that was supposed to be the finish where, okay, I guess Becky is just going to end with a roll-up.
See, what I had heard was the finish was supposed to be starting at that point. Ronda was going to kick out. Becky or Charlotte was going to come in and spear Becky or spear Ronda before Becky could put the armbar on her. Becky would then roll up Charlotte and put her in the disarmer.
Meh. I had heard that they discussed that finish and decided not to go with a submission.
So, I mean, either way,
ending WrestleMania on a roll-up win was not great. So my take on that whole finish was they were legitimately going for that roll-up. The problem was they weren't quite in position and they tried to reconfigure, and it just ended up looking like Ronda quasi kicked out for a brief second and then went, which it's not the biggest crime in the world of wrestling in history. It's just it looked wonky and sloppy and was just an unfortunate way to end WrestleMania, and an unfortunate way to kind of do such a big momentous thing.
Yeah. To me, it felt, again, kind of rushed at the end, super sloppy throughout the whole thing.
Then again, the women's match from WrestleMania 1 ended in a very similar way.
It did.
I'm wondering if it was supposed to be a throwback to that now that I think of it.
God, I hope not. My biggest issue with the match, aside from it being sloppy, I shouldn't say my biggest issue. One of the issues that dumb wrestler brought up was he didn't feel like because of how sloppy it was, because of the quality of the match, that it should have been the main event.
That's dumb.
My rebuttal to that was, if they're not going to do it now, they're never going to do it.
Right. It was the right time to do that. You don't know what that match quality is going to be beforehand.
Right.
If we're going to say, hey, Kofi may have had the jitters, do you think it's possible the women may have been a little jittery being the first time main event in Mania?
Right.
You think maybe that was a little bit of pressure on them?
Not only being jittery, but you have somebody who's still green.
Right.
And somebody who's not that great.
Right.
So it makes sense overall.
Yeah, that story deserved the main event. I can understand people saying, well, Kofi DB should have... Okay, yep, there's a fine argument there. This was still the right thing to do. It was the right time for it. And as you said, if not now, when?
Right. There would not have been another time to do this with the Evolution pay-per-view, with the women's tag belts.
There was no time where the interest and credibility of this story was as high as it is right now.
Exactly.
So... overall, what would you rate this Mania? Give me out of 10.
Oh, that's tough. I would probably say it was a 7.5, 8 out of 10.
So that's I would. If you had asked me at 12:20 on Sunday or on Monday morning, I probably would have said it was about a 6. In retrospect, I was going to say 7.5.
The only reason it is that high is purely because of the outcomes of some of the matches.
And I think that's the final point I think we should end on is whatever you think about WWE right now, whatever you think about anything, they gave the fans the endings they wanted to so many stories that they were invested in right now. This really, really, really felt like they did the right things. Maybe not in every match per se, but in so many matches, in so many of the big matches, especially for a company that kind of has a history of sometimes giving a finger to the fans because they can.
Well, and they've been talking about, quote, listening to the fans recently, hence the whole quasi undoing of the brand split and
Right. And
McMahon showing up everywhere doing everything.
right, and they're not going to let the fans book the entire show, but they gave the fans of what they wanted where it really, really mattered, and that was a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Give them what they want now so that you can give them the finger at SummerSlam.
Yeah. It's just
I mean,
so I think the biggest thing is building back some trust that when it's the really, really, really big ones, they're going to do what the fans really want to see.
Yeah.
And when it's not the super big one, that they're going to build that trust, some of that trust capital back, that the fans will be there and go along with things when it's not exactly what they want. They're like, okay, we'll let you have this one because we know you're going to get us when it really matters to us again.
Right. Like, again, think about it. What better time to give the fans everything that they want than at WrestleMania? And then you really want to piss them off? Take it all away at SummerSlam.
Yeah, they gave us so much that they can now afford, again, to kind of start back into things, and it was the right moves. So overall, definitely one of the better Manias, I think, as far as that kind of thing goes.
One of the better ones in the last, I would say probably 10 years.
I was going to say 5, 6, definitely. Over the last 5 or 6 years, Mania has become, like, ever since they started going real long on the time.
It's been poop.
Right. The match quality has not been there, and the storyline payoffs haven't really been there. So, match quality, maybe, but the payoffs, definitely much better.
Yeah, match quality, 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. Payoffs, 11 out of 10.
Yeah, that's fair.
Give yourself an average somewhere in between
There
that.
you go. That sounds fair. All right. So on that note, we got anything else?
Nope.
All right. We're history.